Welcome, everyone, to another late night broadcast here on Chesterton Radio. It's wonderful to have you with us.
It really is. A perfect night for it, too.
Yeah, exactly. It's raining pretty hard outside the studio windows tonight, actually.
Oh, is it? I hadn't even noticed, honestly.
Yeah, just a real downpour. But, that's kind of the perfect backdrop for what we do here. We want you to just pull up an armchair wherever you are.
Right, get comfortable.
Right? Maybe pour yourself something cold. Let the ice clink in the glass a bit.
Yeah.
And just join us by the metaphorical fire.
Because tonight we are really leaning into that civilized space, you know?
We absolutely are. We're taking a deep dive into something that celebrates wit and sanity and, just the absolute joy of ordinary things.
Which is so needed right now. I mean, it really is.
It is. So I want to start by asking you to think about the classic American detective story today. Like, what immediately comes to mind?
Oh, well, it's pretty grim, right?
Exactly. Your mind almost inevitably goes straight to the gutter. And I mean that literally. You picture, like, rain-slicked streets.
The neon glare reflecting in the puddles.
Yes, the neon glare. And you always imagine this solitary, brooding figure. He's in a rumpled trench coat, nursing some cheap bourbon in a dirty glass.
Sitting in a dimly lit office, probably with a broken heart.
Right. Always a broken heart. It's a genre that kind of insists the darkness of the city has to seep into the investigator's very soul, I guess.
It's the mandatory toll of modern noir. We've collectively decided, it seems, that to understand evil, you have to be, at least half corrupted by it.
Yeah.
The modern detective is practically required to be a miserable, tortured loner. If he's happy, the assumption is he's just not paying attention.
Like he's naive or something.
Exactly. He's supposed to be carrying the weight of this fundamentally senseless world.
But the films we're looking at tonight completely shatter that trope into a million pieces.
They really do. It's a total paradigm shift.
We are turning the dial back to the 1930s. And the moment we do, that relentless, depressing rain is replaced by, pristine falling snow over Manhattan.
It's gorgeous. And that cheap bourbon, swapped out for a perfectly mixed, ice-cold, dry martini.
Oh, absolutely. And that brooding loner is completely gone. In his place, we find a husband and wife.
Laughing together.
Laughing. Treating murder not as a descent into some existential hell, but as a rather inconvenient, albeit fascinating, interruption to their cocktail hour.
Which is such a brilliant way to phrase it. We are, of course, talking about The Thin Man from 1934 and its 1936 sequel, After the Thin Man.
Featuring the absolutely iconic William Powell and Myrna Loy as Nick and Nora Charles.
Right. And our mission for this deep dive is to look at these films not just as, mere whodunit.
Right, because there's so much more than that.
They aren't disposable entertainment. They are windows into a lost civilization. Nick and Nora are more than just clever characters. They serve as this timeless model of married life.
I love that.
Right.
A world where partnership is a grand adventure.
Yes. And where humor isn't used as a cynical weapon, but as a glittering shield against the darkness.
Which is such a refreshing mental model for anyone listening today. Because I kept thinking of Nick and Nora's banter as a perfectly executed jazz duet.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Right. Because on the surface, it sounds entirely improvisational. It's effortless. It's light as air.
Yeah, they're just riffing.
But when you really study it, you realize that kind of freedom is only possible because it's built on this unshakable foundation of mutual trust.
They know exactly where the other person is going to be.
Exactly. They can tease each other. They can push the boundaries precisely because their underlying loyalty is absolute.
The jazz analogy is incredibly apt. It's all about practiced harmony. But to truly understand why this couple represents the height of civilization, we have to look at the contrast.
The dark velvet background, right?
Yes, exactly. We have to recall the chaotic, shadowy, and frankly very brutal worlds they are constantly forced to navigate.
Because the world is still dangerous in these films, even if they aren't depressed about it.
Right. The brilliance of Nick and Nora only shines because of that contrast.
So let's set the stage a bit. Dive into the mechanics of that chaos. The first adventure, The Thin Man, drops us right into Christmas in New York City.
Best time of year to be in New York.
Oh, absolutely. And we meet Nick Charles. He's a happily retired detective, and I just love his stated motivation for retiring.
It's hilarious.
He claims he has completely given up the game and just wants to live off his beautiful wife's considerable fortune. just so he'll have something for his old age.
He is luxuriating in it. He has absolutely no tortured drive to stay on the job.
None at all. He's entirely unbothered by ego.
But naturally, the underworld won't let him go. The central mystery of the first film involves this eccentric, missing inventor named Clyde Winant.
Right, and the brutal murder of his secretary, Julia Wolfe.
Exactly. It's a classic tangled web of deceit, missing money, hidden motives. But what's so brilliant is Nora's psychological reaction to this intrusion into their vacation.
Oh my gosh, yes. Because in almost any other thriller, the spouse is the anchor dragging the hero back.
Always. They are begging their partner to stay out of it, terrified for their safety, crying by the door.
Don't go, it's too dangerous.
Right. But Nora does the exact opposite.
She is utterly delighted, and this is where we really start seeing the psychology of their relationship.
She actively pushes Nick to take the case.
Because in her own words, she wanted some excitement. She even complains to him, with a perfectly straight face, mind you, that she was brought all the way to New York just to be made a widow, and he hasn't even had the decency to get himself killed yet.
It's a hilarious subversion, but let's pause and think about why she reacts that way.
Yeah, let's unpack that.
Psychologically, Nora can desire that level of danger only because her baseline level of security with Nick is absolute.
Oh, that's profound.
When you feel profoundly safe in your primary attachment, the outside world becomes a playground rather than a threat.
Right, she isn't actually suicidal.
No, not at all. She trusts Nick's competence so thoroughly that she literally views a murder investigation as a thrilling double date.
And what a weird double date it is, given the people they have to interact with. I mean, the cast of characters orbiting this mystery is exhausting just to look at.
It really is a menagerie.
You've got Clyde Winant's hysterical, incredibly greedy ex-wife, Mimi. You've got their morbidly peculiar son, Gilbert.
Oh, Gilbert. Asking Nick wildly inappropriate questions about dead bodies.
Yes. And you have the frantic daughter, Dorothy, who is convinced her own father's a killer. And then, the actual mobsters like Joe Morelli.
Who literally bursts into their hotel room waving a gun.
Which is a scene we absolutely have to unpack later because it's a masterclass in their dynamic. But the chaos isn't just limited to New York.
No, the sequel ramps it up even more.
Right. If we followed the timeline to the second chapter, after The Thin Man in 1936, the setting shifts. We move from a snowy New York Christmas to New Year's Eve in San Francisco.
And the chaos literally meets them at the station. They step off the streamliner and are instantly mobbed by reporters and well-wishers and criminals.
And San Francisco introduces a completely new sociological dynamic to the films.
Yeah.
In New York, they were mostly dealing with the grimy underworld and, eccentric individuals.
Right, but in After the Thin Man, we get this brilliant, sharp contrast between the criminal underworld and the stifling, snobbish heights of San Francisco high society.
Oh, high society is the worst in these movies. This is where we meet Nora's family, specifically her deeply aristocratic, incredibly stuffy Aunt Catherine.
Catherine is a piece of work.
And her fragile cousin Selma.
And the stakes here are much more intimate. The plot is decidedly darker than the first one. Selma is married to an absolute scoundrel named Robert.
A truly terrible guy.
Robert is actively trying to extort money from Selma's ex-fiancé, David. And then, shocker, Robert is found shot dead on the front steps of Aunt Catherine's mansion.
And Selma is found standing right near the body, looking completely dissociated, making her the prime suspect.
Which immediately drags Nick and Nora into a massive web of deceit. They are pulled down into the smoky, dangerous world of the Lucci nightclub.
Right, dealing with blackmailers, club owners like Dancer and Polly, and leaving a trail of murdered witnesses.
Including a guy named Phil Burns and, tragically, the former family gardener, Pedro.
It's incredibly intricate. You have false identities, secret apartments, blackmail schemes layered on top of other blackmail schemes.
I got a whole roster of people who all seem to have perfectly legitimate reasons to want Robert dead.
Okay, but hold on. Let me push back here for a second because this gets to a core question I had when prepping for this broadcast.
Sure, go ahead.
You map out these plots, and they are labyrinthine. They are incredibly dense. But do you or does the audience actually care about the intricacies of these clues?
That's a fair question.
I mean, when people rewatch The Thin Man, are they pausing it to carefully track the alibis of Joe Morelli or the club owner Dancer? Is the mystery actually the point? Or is the mystery just a magnificent, elaborate excuse to spend 2 hours with Nick and Nora?
Well, that is the million-dollar question for this entire genre. And I think the answer is twofold, but it leans heavily toward the latter.
The excuse to hang out with them.
Yes. The plot, as intricately constructed as Dashiell Hammett originally wrote it in the novel, is ultimately secondary to the cinematic experience.
Right.
The true anchor, the eye of the hurricane, is the marriage itself. The cognitive load of tracking the clues gives our brains something to chew on, you know? It keeps us engaged.
Yeah, it's a puzzle.
But our emotional engagement is entirely with the detectives, not the mystery.
It's almost like the plot is the rhythm section, but Nick and Nora are the melody. We're tapping our feet to the mystery, but we're humming the dialogue.
Oh, I love that. Exactly. We're there for the unshakable bond and their shared amusement at the absolute absurdity of the world around them.
Which brings us to a concept I want to elevate to a formal mental model for our listeners tonight. Let's call it the Nora Charles principle of shared risk.
Okay, I like the sound of that.
This is the absolute heart of why these films resonate today. Nick and Nora completely, utterly subvert the tired, deeply cynical trope of the ball and chain.
Yes. Let's talk about the ball and chain trope, because in so much of popular culture, both in the 1930s and arguably even more so today, marriage is portrayed as a tragic ending.
It's the end of the adventure, the end of freedom.
Right. It's depicted as the beginning of this long, slow, suffocating decline into domestic drudgery and mutual resentment.
The husband wants to do something exciting, and the wife is there to nag him about the mortgage.
Or the wife is vibrant, and the husband is just a lump on the couch. It's depicted as a burden, a fundamental compromising of the self.
Yeah. Modern storytelling is obsessed with the idea that self-actualization can only happen independently of your spouse.
Exactly. Marriages in modern prestige dramas are almost inevitably fractured. They are engines for misery, infidelity, misunderstanding, and petty cruelty.
The drama comes from the decay of the bond.
Yes, but for Nick and Nora, the marriage is the adventure. It's a joyful, unified partnership.
They are a team facing outward, confronting the world together, rather than two individuals turning inward to tear each other apart.
And we see specific evidence of this shared risk principle everywhere in the films. Let's look at Nora's absolute insistence on being part of the action.
Right. She refuses to be the Penelope figure left behind to knit by the fire while Odysseus goes out into the dangerous world.
There is a terrifying sequence in After the Thin Man that illustrates this perfectly. Nick discovers a secret apartment hidden above the nightclub singer's room.
Oh, that scene is so tense.
It's an extortionist's dream, complete with a hole bored in the floor for spying, a lead pipe, and a rope ladder. The suspect they are chasing flees down into the pitch-black cellar.
And Nick does what any protective husband would do. He tells Nora to stay put. He tells her to be safe upstairs.
But she absolutely does not.
No. She sneaks into that dark cellar of the apartment building to investigate on her own, armed with nothing but a skeleton key she borrowed from a police lieutenant.
Which is objectively reckless.
Highly reckless.
Highly reckless. But we have to look at the psychological motivation. It isn't just thrill-seeking for its own sake. It stems from her deep foundational desire to be a full participant in her husband's life and work.
She refuses to be siloed into the domestic sphere.
Exactly. She wanders into this pitch-black basement, bumps into a man in the dark, thinks it's Nick, and cheerfully asks him for a kiss.
And then Nick strikes a match, the light flares up, and they both realize she hasn't bumped into Nick at all. She's bumped into a corpse.
The murdered body of Pedro the gardener.
It is a brilliantly tense scene and a masterful tonal shift. She gets herself into genuine, horrifying danger.
But what matters is that the narrative doesn't punish her for it by making her hysterical. And Nick doesn't berate her for disobeying him. The shared risk is accepted as part of the price of their total partnership.
Okay, but let's look at the flip side of that shared risk, because I want to challenge you on a very specific, very famous scene from the first film, The Thin Man.
I think I know which one you mean.
Because to a modern audience, this scene is, well, it's jarring. They are in their hotel suite in New York. Nick is trying to sleep. Nora is peppering him with questions about the case.
Right, she won't let it go.
Suddenly, the gangster Joe Morelli bursts into the room, holding them at gunpoint, desperate to explain his innocence.
The tension spikes immediately. And then the police, who have been tipped off, start hammering on the hotel room door.
Morelli panics. The cornered animal instinct kicks in. He turns his gun toward the door, ready to shoot it out with the cops.
And Nora is standing right in the crossfire.
And this is where it gets crazy. Nick, reacting with pure instinct to save his wife, turns and literally punches Nora square in the jaw.
Yep, out cold.
He knocks her out cold, dropping her to the floor and out of the line of fire.
Yeah.
just before he tackles Morelli and the police burst in. Now, I understand the 1930s context. I understand it was a physical comedy bit in a different era.
Right. Standards have changed.
But, and here's my challenge, how is this an expression of trust? Because you could argue that punching your wife in the face sounds like pure chaos, not trust.
It is chaos, but look at the resolution. Look at the aftermath. If you want to understand the health of a relationship, don't just look at the conflict, look at the repair.
Okay, the repair.
How does Nora react when she wakes up? A normal person would be outraged. They'd be filing for divorce or calling for an assault charge.
Sure, understandably.
But Nora wakes up, rubs her jaw, looks at Nick, and says, "Oh, you darn fool. You didn't have to knock me out. I knew you'd take him, but I wanted to see you do it."
I wanted to see you do it. It's incredible.
That reaction is why it's an expression of trust. She isn't angry that he hit her. She's annoyed that she missed the end of the fight.
She wanted a front row seat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She knows implicitly and absolutely that his action, however violent in the microsecond, was driven entirely by a desperate, overriding need to protect her life.
There's no doubt.
There is no misunderstanding between them because there is no fundamental doubt about his love for her. She doesn't have to sit there and psychoanalyze his behavior because she possesses absolute clarity about his character.
He is her protector.
Right, and in a split-second life-or-death scenario, she trusts his methods, even if she complains about missing the show.
That's a fascinating way to frame it. The lack of lingering resentment is the key. They don't hold on to grievances.
Never.
And there is a piece of Hollywood lore behind this magic that I think explains why this relationship feels so authentic, so devoid of manufactured melodrama. The director, W.S. Van Dyke, had a nickname in the industry, One Take Woody.
Oh, yes. He shot the entirety of The Thin Man in just 16 days.
16 days. I mean, that is practically unfathomable.
Huh.
To put that in perspective for you listening today, in the modern blockbuster era, you might spend 16 days just setting up the lighting and the green screen for a single 3-minute action sequence. And he shot it with virtually no retakes, which means what you are seeing on screen isn't a heavily sanitized, micromanaged, over-edited performance.
It's an almost live performance.
This lightning-in-a-bottle production perfectly mirrored the effortless natural chemistry between William Powell and Myrna Loy. They weren't agonizing over every single syllable, doing 50 takes to get a tear to fall just right.
They were flowing through the scenes, riffing, playing off each other with genuine affection. It was a flow state.
A marital flow state. That is exactly what it is. And that unified partnership is communicated not through sweeping, melodramatic, romantic monologues.
No, they aren't standing on rain-swept balconies declaring their undying devotion while a string orchestra swells in the background.
Thank goodness.
Their devotion is communicated through their unique, highly tuned musical language, which brings us to a major theme we need to discuss: the lost art of wit.
Let's define our terms here, because I think modern culture conflates wit with sarcasm. We have largely replaced true wit with irony and sarcasm, and there's a massive psychological difference.
A huge difference. Sarcasm actually comes from a Greek root word meaning to tear flesh.
Wow, to pare flesh.
Right. It is inherently destructive. It's a defense mechanism used to tear down the other person, to establish superiority.
Exactly. Sarcasm is cheap. It's easy. It requires very little intelligence to mock something. Wit, on the other hand, is creative.
It is generative.
Yes, it is the spontaneous creation of humor and insight, often requiring you to connect two disparate ideas in a novel way. In the world of Nick and Nora, their dialogue is a collaborative creation. It's a sign of their deep affection.
They use humor constantly, but crucially, it is humor without vulgarity. Their wit is an attractive, magnetic force. It draws people in rather than pushing them away.
And what I find so compelling is how their wit serves as the great equalizer. They treat literally everyone they meet with the exact same urbane respect and amusement.
Yes, they never punch down at the poor, and they never grovel upwards at the rich.
They are completely unintimidated by class structures. Think about that brilliant scene at the railroad station when they first arrive in San Francisco in After the Thin Man.
Oh, with fingers.
Yes. They are trying to navigate this chaotic crowd of reporters, and Nora bumps into a rather shady-looking character. He tips his hat, apologizes politely, and moves on.
Just a normal interaction.
A moment later, Nora looks down and realizes her purse is gone. Nick looks at the retreating figure and immediately recognizes him. It's an old underworld acquaintance of his named Fingers McCoy.
Now, how would a normal, wealthy person react?
They'd start screaming for the police, "Stop thief!"
But how does Nick handle it? He simply calls out, "Hiya!" Fingers. Fingers turns around, sees his old pal Nick the detective, and comes over, greeting him warmly.
Nick introduces him to Nora. He says, "Nora, I want you to meet Fingers McCoy. This is my wife, Fingers."
And Fingers, the hardened criminal, is genuinely mortified. He stammers. "Say, I didn't know I'm sorry about your purse, Mrs. Charles."
And Nora doesn't miss a beat. She is perfectly cordial. She doesn't treat him like scum. She just says, "Well, I do need it. I had it with me."
And Fingers promises it will turn up, wishes them a happy new year, and scurries off.
And when Nora says she needs to go back and get the purse from him right then, Nick stops her. This is the crucial line. He says, "Come on, you don't want to embarrass him, do you? Think of his feelings. He's a purse snatcher. He didn't know you were my wife. You'll get it back in the morning nail. He's a very honest pickpocket."
An honest pickpocket. I mean, that is a Chestertonian paradox served on a silver platter.
It absolutely is. And Nick is right, of course. He understands the code of the world he operates in. He treats Fingers not with moral disgust, but with the kind of amused professional courtesy.
He grants the man his dignity.
And Nora, picking up on the rhythm immediately, adopts the exact same attitude. She just smiles and remarks, "Oh, Nick, you do know the nicest people."
It's a complete inversion of noblesse oblige. Now, contrast that interaction with how they handle the snobbery of high society.
Right, let's talk about Aunt Catherine again.
Later in that exact same film, they are summoned to Aunt Catherine's palatial, oppressive mansion for dinner. Aunt Catherine is the epitome of cold, status-obsessed aristocracy. She treats Nick with barely veiled contempt.
She views him as a low-class flatfoot who somehow swindled his way into the respectable, wealthy family.
When Aunt Catherine finally has to swallow her pride and ask for his help because her niece's husband has disappeared, she insists he investigate the matter quietly.
Because they simply cannot have their precious family name dragged through the papers.
She implies she would literally rather a man be dead than face a public scandal in high society.
And Nick handles her with the exact same unflappable, ironic courtesy that he used with Fingers the pickpocket.
Yeah.
He isn't cowed by her wealth.
He isn't insulted by her condescension.
He just observes it the way a scientist observes a fascinating bug.
Which brings us to a profound philosophical point. Their wit isn't just a stylistic choice. It is a moral defense mechanism.
A defense against what, exactly?
By refusing to take themselves too seriously, by refusing to be intimidated by Aunt Catherine's wealth or disgusted by Fingers' poverty, they remain immune to the vanity and greed that corrupts all the murderers around them.
Ah, that makes sense. The villains in these stories are always deadly serious.
They are obsessed. Obsessed with their money, their status, their revenge.
Nick and Nora's laughter is the sound of spiritual freedom. They are not bound by those earthly anxieties because they have each other. If they lost all their money tomorrow, you get the feeling they'd just shrug, make a joke, and go get a job.
Their identity isn't tied to their status.
But, and this is a massive but, we have to acknowledge the dark velvet background again. There is true darkness around them.
Beneath the cocktail banter and the elegant clothes lies a very real, very dangerous moral universe.
Right, let's dig into this, because this is where the Chestertonian worldview really permeates these films. These are comedies. We're laughing at the dialogue. But they deal with strangulation.
They deal with a human skeleton buried in fresh cement under a laboratory floor.
They deal with brutal betrayals and cold-blooded executions in dark cellars. So the question is, how on earth do they balance this light, effervescent tone with such grim, horrific subject matter? Modern audiences might find it jarring, this mix of martinis and corpses.
It's a philosophical tightrope walk, but the underlying philosophy, the reason it works, is the belief that crime is intelligible and truth is discoverable.
Think about the modern true crime obsession or the modern noir thriller. In those genres, evil is often presented as a senseless, chaotic void.
It's almost Lovecraftian. It's an unnameable terror that drives you mad just by trying to comprehend it. A serial killer who kills for absolutely no reason, just pure chaotic malice.
The idea that the universe is just a meat grinder and we're all just waiting our turn.
Exactly. But in the Chestertonian universe of Nick and Nora, the universe makes sense. Evil is a real, potent force, but it is rational.
When a murder occurs, it happens for a reason.
It is driven by recognizable, if deeply warped, human motivations. Greed, jealousy, revenge. And because it is rational, it can be understood by the rational mind. Truth is not relative. It is objective, and it can be brought to the light.
Let's look at the anatomy of evil in these films to prove that point. Let's look at the villains.
Okay, let's start with the first film.
In The Thin Man, the ultimate killer is revealed to be Macaulay, the seemingly respectable lawyer. Now, Macaulay didn't kill Clyde Wynant in a fit of inexplicable madness. He didn't hear voices telling him to do it.
He killed him to cover up his own completely mundane bureaucratic greed.
He had been quietly embezzling from his client's estate. When Wynant found out, Macaulay killed him, buried him in his own lab, and then spent 3 months writing fake letters and sending telegrams to frame the dead man for the subsequent murder of the secretary, Julia Wolfe, who was helping him extort the estate.
It is a sin of pure, calculating, rational greed. Macaulay is a man in a nice suit who simply views human life as a logistical obstacle to his bank account.
Now, if we look at After the Thin Man, the evil is even more intimate and, frankly, much more disturbing. The killer is David.
David is the mild-mannered, seemingly helpful, perfectly polite ex-fiancé of Selma. Throughout the entire film, David appears to be the only decent man in Selma's life. He's constantly offering to help, even offering to pay off her terrible husband, Robert, to just go away and leave her in peace.
But the reveal exposes a twisted, deeply narcissistic psychology. David didn't pay Robert to go away. He lured him out into the fog and shot him dead.
And here's the truly chilling part. He didn't just shoot him to get him out of the way so he could swoop in and marry Selma.
As Nick deduces, David actually hated Selma. He hated her for throwing him over for Robert in the first place. He killed Robert, planted the gun, and arranged the circumstances specifically so that Selma would be accused and convicted of the murder.
Listen to the psychology of David's confession when Nick finally corners him at the end. It's terrifying. He says, "I did kill Robert, but not the way I wanted to. It was too easy, too quick. I wanted to see him suffer. And you, Selma, I wanted to see you go gradually madder and madder as the day came when you were going to hang."
It is a chilling, venomous, utterly consuming hatred.
It is profoundly evil. But, and this is the key point, it is intelligible. We understand the motive. It's a festering, narcissistic wound that mutated into homicidal revenge. He felt humiliated, so he wanted to orchestrate the ultimate humiliation for her.
But because this evil is rational, because it operates on a twisted logic of cause and effect, it can be defeated by reason. Order can and will be restored by the end of the night. The chaos is temporary, sanity is permanent.
And to restore that order requires a very specific kind of hero. You can't fight rational evil with chaotic despair. You have to fight it with unshakable sanity.
Which brings us back to Nick Charles as the civilized man. We discussed earlier how Nick is the anti-brooding hero. He is balanced, he's well-fed, usually holding a drink, highly amused by the world, and supremely competent.
Right, he doesn't need the darkness to function. He isn't drawn to the gutter because his soul belongs there. If left entirely to his own devices, he would genuinely rather be at home with Nora and their wire fox terrier, Asta.
He wants to read the newspaper, have a cocktail, and go to sleep. His detection is not a compulsion born of trauma. And there's a fantastic phrase to describe his motivation. Rational charity.
Rational charity. I think that's the perfect way to frame it. He gets involved often reluctantly at first, complaining the whole time because he encounters people who are utterly helpless and sinking in despair.
He sees a problem that his specific intellect can solve. In The Thin Man, he doesn't care about the missing inventor at first. But he finally takes the case seriously when he sees the frantic despair of Dorothy, the daughter, who believes her own father is a murderer and is trying to take the blame herself to protect him.
Nick sees this young girl's life collapsing under the weight of a lie, and his civilized nature compels him to step in, find the truth, and save her.
He is compelled by a sense of order. And in Ever the Thin Man, he is moved by the plight of cousin Selma. Selma is fragile, broken, and eventually locked in a jail cell, terrified that she might have actually committed the murder in a dissociative fugue state.
Nick tells Nora to stop worrying. He assures her, with complete confidence, that Selma is innocent and he will prove it. He acts as a shield for the vulnerable.
And his sanity is his superpower. This is crucial. Look at his cognitive response to danger. In the end, after the Thin Man, Nick and Nora are in bed trying to sleep. Suddenly, the window shatters. A heavy rock crashes into the room, spraying glass everywhere.
Now, how does a normal human nervous system respond to that? Fight or flight? Most people would dive under the bed screaming. Adrenaline spikes. Panic sets in.
What does Nick do? He doesn't even blink. He calmly tells Nora to keep her head down, walks over to the rock, and finds a threatening note tied to it.
The note is warning him to investigate a guy named Phil Burns in Topeka, Kansas. It's a crude attempt by the killer to throw him off the scent.
And Nick's reaction is entirely analytical. He bypasses the amygdala, the fear center of the brain, entirely. He goes straight to the prefrontal cortex. He feels curiosity, not fear.
Exactly. He looks at the note and immediately starts analyzing the spelling. He points out to Nora that Topeka is spelled incorrectly, Topeker, but then he notices that while the easy words are misspelled, the difficult words are spelled perfectly. He deduces instantly, this is an educated person trying to sound uneducated.
It's a plant.
He is unflappable because his inner life is completely secure. The chaos of the outside world, a rock through the window, a man with a gun cannot penetrate the fortress of his own mind or the fortress of his marriage.
He knows who he is, he knows who his wife is, and he knows that truth exists to be found.
Which brings us to a broader cultural reflection. And this is where we really hit the core of what we talk about on Chesterton Radio. Looking at Nick and Nora Charles forces us to reflect on the era that created them and the era we live in now. What kind of society produces stories like this?
It's a fascinating question. Because the 1930s were not a utopian time. This was the era of the Great Depression. The gathering storm clouds of fascism and war were looming over Europe. People were suffering immensely.
Yet, this society still possessed a fundamental underlying confidence in civilization. It was a society that still believed, broadly speaking, in objective truth. It believed in the sanctity and the joy of marriage, and it believed in the ultimate triumph of the intellect over brute force.
And we have to ask ourselves, what have we lost in modern storytelling? By abandoning this model, what are we teaching ourselves?
We have largely replaced the sparkling, generative wit of Nick and Nora with a kind of bleak, irony-poisoned sarcasm. We have replaced their moral clarity, the absolute certainty that the innocent must be protected and the guilty punished, with a bleak, endless ambiguity where the heroes are indistinguishable from the villains, where everyone is compromised, and where truth is just a matter of perspective.
We have lost the Chestertonian paradox. And this is the perfect moment to introduce that concept, because it ties everything together. G.K. Chesterton often wrote about the profound spiritual seriousness of humor. To summarize his philosophy as applied to these films, it is a strange truth that the most serious thing in these films is their laughter.
The most serious thing is their laughter. Let's unpack the psychology of that for everyone listening, because at first glance, the laughter seems frivolous. They are drinking martinis and making wisecracks while people are dying. It looks like callousness.
But the laughter in these films isn't an escape from reality. It isn't a cynical dismissal of the tragedy. It is a victory over despair.
Yes. The villains, the murderers, the blackmailers, they are the ones who are deadly serious. Macaulay, the embezzler, is a very serious man, obsessing over his ledgers. David, the vengeful killer, is a desperately serious, brooding man, obsessing over his wounded pride. Aunt Catherine, obsessed with her social standing, is paralyzed by seriousness.
Their seriousness is a symptom of their spiritual sickness. They are trapped by their own egos and their worldly anxieties.
Nick and Nora's laughter is the sound of spiritual freedom. They can laugh because they are not owned by the world. They are not afraid of losing their status because they don't care about it. They are not afraid of losing their wealth because their primary wealth is their bond with each other.
Their levity is the ultimate proof of their sanity. They take the murder seriously enough to solve it, but they refuse to let the existence of murder destroy their joy in living.
And there is absolutely no better showcase of this joyful mastery over chaos, this triumph of the intellect, than the signature climax of both of these films. Let's talk about the dinner party reveal.
The dinner party reveal. It is one of the most satisfying narrative mechanics in all of detective fiction. Agatha Christie pioneered it, but William Powell's Nick Charles perfected it on screen.
Let's break down the psychology of how this works, because it's not just a dramatic trope, it's a psychological weapon. When the investigation reaches its absolute boiling point, when the lies are too thick to cut through individually, Nick has a legendary tactic.
He gathers every single suspect, every person remotely connected to the case, and puts them in one room. Often, he literally hosts a dinner party for them. He shakes the tree to see what falls out.
In The Thin Man, it is a masterpiece of tension. He gathers them in a beautifully appointed private dining room. There is an orchestra playing softly behind the palms. There is caviar and fine wine on the table.
And seated around this elegant table are the hysterical Mimi, the peculiar son Gilbert, the grieving daughter Dorothy, the lawyer Macaulay, the gangster Joe Morelli, and the police inspector standing quietly by the doors. It's a powder keg in tuxedos.
Nick takes his seat at the head of the table, clinking his glass, turns to the room, and says, "I thought if we all had a little get-together, we might be able to find out who the murderer is."
And the brilliance of it, and this is what makes it so thrilling, is that, Nick doesn't necessarily have the hard physical proof To convict the killer when the soup is served, he is relying entirely on psychological pressure.
He is using the setting itself as a weapon, exploiting the cognitive load of lying. Why is this format so deeply satisfying to the audience? Because it provides a localized arena. The sprawling chaos of the city, the dark alleys, the hidden laboratories, the scattered clues, is suddenly trapped within 4 walls. The infinite variables of the mystery are reduced to the 10 people sitting at the table.
And Nick acts as the conductor of this psychological symphony. Lying requires immense cognitive effort. You have to maintain a false reality, remember who knows what, and monitor your own reactions. By bringing everyone together, Nick forces the killer to manage the reactions of 10 different people at once.
He lays out the narrative step by step. He tells the story of the crime, watching their faces, testing their reactions. He throws a sudden accusation at Morelli to see how he flinches. He corners Mimi in a lie about seeing her dead ex-husband alive, introducing new, chaotic facts that overload the killer's working memory.
He tightens the screws, applying more and more narrative pressure, until the murderer simply short-circuits under the weight of the truth. In The Thin Man, it is Macaulay who finally breaks when he realizes Nick has deduced the timeline of the embezzling. His cognitive load maxes out. He panics, tries to run, and Nick punches him out.
After The Thin Man, Nick uses the exact same tactic, gathering everyone in the secret apartment above the club. He starts by accusing Dancer, the club owner, building a perfectly logical yet entirely false case against him.
Yes, that's the brilliant misdirection. He accuses Dancer of killing the blackmailer, Phil Burns. And just when Dancer is sweating, Nick pivots sharply. He points out the misspelled Topeka note. He suddenly produces the photograph of Pedro the gardener from 6 years ago, proving David lied about recognizing him. He systematically dismantles David's alibi and exposes his deeply twisted motive in front of everyone.
And David cracks. The pristine, polite facade shatters. He pulls a gun intending to kill Selma and himself until the club owner's enforcer, Lum Key, tackles him to the ground, saying simply, "I catch him, you betcha."
Well, wait, he says it without the pause, right? He just says, "I catch him, you betcha."
Right, I catch him, you betcha. It is the ultimate triumph of civilization over barbarism. Trapping a murderer using nothing but logic, exploiting the weakness of the guilty mind, and doing it over a multi-course meal.
It is brilliant. It's the civilized mind conquering the chaotic world. And as the dinner party ends, as the police haul the villains away to face justice, the room clears. The chaos is excised. And Nick and Nora are left exactly where they want to be, alone with each other, mixing one last drink before bed. Which brings us to our final segment tonight, a toast to Nick and Nora.
Looking back at these films nearly a century after they were made, it is clear why listeners and viewers still find these stories so incredibly refreshing. It isn't just the snappy dialogue or the glamorous clothes, though those are delightful. It is because they offer a vision of life that is fundamentally deeply optimistic.
They tell us that the world is chaotic, yes. People are greedy, people are cruel, and rocks will occasionally get thrown through your window. But they also tell us that reason is stronger than madness, that truth will inevitably rise to the surface if you have the patience to find it.
And most importantly, they tell us that true love is not a fragile, delicate thing that must be hidden away and protected from the world. It is a robust, joyful armor that allows you to face absolute anything the world throws at you.
Think about the beautiful, quiet ending of After the Thin Man. The sprawling, violent mystery in San Francisco is finally solved. The innocent are freed, the guilty are punished. Nick and Nora are back on the train, heading home to New York. The reporters are gone. The world has receded. They're finally alone in their compartment, and Nora is sitting quietly, knitting.
Nick looks over, a bit confused, and asks what she's making. And the camera shows us, and Nick realizes it's a tiny baby sock.
It is a profound ending, disguised as a lighthearted gag. It is the ultimate proof that their adventure isn't over. It is just beginning a new chapter. Their marriage, having successfully navigated death, deception, and the absolute worst of human nature, is now moving toward the creation of new life. The family continues. Civilization, embodied in their unbreakable union, marches forward.
It is a quiet, beautiful affirmation of life at the end of a story about death.
So, as our metaphorical fire burns down to embers here in the studio tonight, we want to leave you with a final, provocative thought. Think about your own life. When you are faced with the chaotic, the absurd, the difficult interruptions that inevitably come your way, how do you react? Do you meet the darkness with anxiety, with cynicism, and with despair.
Or can you find a way to meet it with the civilized grace, the unshakable sanity, and the shared laughter of Nick and Nora Charles? Can you find the courage to mix a martini, metaphorical or otherwise, in the face of madness?
You know, we started this broadcast talking about the modern detective, that solitary man in the rain-slicked streets, nursing his bourbon and his broken heart, letting the darkness consume him because he thinks that's the only way to be honest. These stories offer us the antidote. They show us that you don't have to let the rain in. You can light a fire. You can pour a drink. You can grab the hand of someone you love. And you can face the shadows with a smile. From all of us here at Chesterton Radio, we raise a glass to you. We wish you a very good night, a joyful marriage if you have one, and a civilized, sane tomorrow. Thanks for listening. Good night.